Are we? Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. I'm sorry for the little delay there. Brian and I were getting caught up. He's a big baseball fan, and his Seattle Mariners are doing really, really well. And I told him I'm a casual, pay attention to baseball. And I hear they got this guy called the Big Dumper, and they were playing on Monday Night Football, which was funny, showing different players and see if you could recognize him. And they showed his butt.
Yeah.
And one of the guys says, "Oh, I bet that's the Big Dumper." So, yeah. We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. I'll take care of some housekeeping. Then we'll see what we can help you with content. We have our always special, even more special tonight, VIP guest, because he could be watching his Mariners right now, is joining us. Our very special VIP guest and wingman, Brian Lee, the Test Geek in living form. He's the managing member of Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. Tell us what series exam you're taking, where you're joining us from. And if you do have a question for us when we get done with the housekeeping, it helps us pull it out of the chat if you tell us what exam you're taking with a Q followed by your question, because it's okay if you don't, but, different NASA and FINRA exams have overlapping content, and the depth at which the questions get asked could be much different. So it's same content on the SIE. It's going to be much more shallow than it would be on a Series 7, which would be much deeper. So that's just helpful for us. If you're looking for a supplement, and why wouldn't you not be looking for a supplement? There are two versions. There are free supplements and there are paid supplements. If you are looking for a free supplement, the best free supplement is my YouTube channel. Everything on the channel is free. I don't sell channel memberships. I don't do group tutoring sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. None of that. It's just completely free. And I've organized my series playlists. So you find your exam, like you're taking 66, for example. The first play in that playlist would be a podcast series that Brian and I did. We get asked all the time, should you read the book? The answer is yes. But I've accepted, Brian, that maybe people aren't going to read the book. And so maybe if you're not going to read the book, we want you to. If you watch the Brian and I podcast series, it gives you a nice overview of what all that content kind of looks at. I kind of think of like a good recon of the terrain that you're going to be, traversing kind of as you go through that. The second would be lectures. Third would be practice test and practice questions. I forget what the fourth one is. There's a fourth. Oh, an explication of the 65 planet playlist. Second thing is if you're looking for, that's best if you want to binge, right? And I have those playlists in suggested watch orders. The videos are in suggested watch order. I don't know why people ask, which video should I watch first? I go the one that says number one. That's why I go to number one. Now, you can cherry pick if you want, however you want to do it. It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. If you're looking for particular content, please, please, please use the channel search bar. It's okay. Brian and I are going to get asked questions we've asked and answered many times, and they live forever in video format. But if you just go to the channel search bar and you put margin or accrued interest or net present value, whatever the case may be, you'll see 5, 6, 7 videos. Hard to believe, Brian. We have just crossed over 2,000 videos. So why would you want to be looking for a needle in a haystack if you're looking for a particular topic, right? We've crossed over 8 million views, 60,000 subscribers. Never in my wildest dreams would I have funked that. Now, if you're looking for a paid supplement, I think if you don't have a Kaplan Q Bank, I think it is the best paid supplement out there, particularly when you pair it with Brian's overview. Brian is a master of distillation between your study materials and the actual test. That's a video series. It has a PDF. It comes with a practice test. The 15% discount code for Kaplan is Guru15. That works for everything at Kaplan, including the Guru exam prep classes I do for Kaplan. I'm doing a Series 66 for Kaplan, 17th, 19th. I'm doing a Series 7, October 22nd. Those are collaborative classes. I'm not a Kaplan employee, as much as I tell people that. I don't think I told you, Gigs is no longer with Kaplan, Brian. I'll talk to you about that backstage.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, that discount code works for all Kaplan products and services. And Brian has been kind enough to give us a 20% discount code on his content. I just gave that code to somebody who was looking for it. And I think that brings Brian in about $100, and Kaplan Q Bank's like 150 something. Call it 160 all in about. Don't quote me on that, but that's pretty much, where you can find it. Now, we also have communities at various locations. You're not alone. One of the reasons to join us on Tuesdays is to stay plugged in and join our test-taking tribe. You could join our test-taking tribe here on YouTube, but we also have a Facebook group. Let me get rid of that. Boom. Our Facebook community, you can see scrolling on the bottom, is Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Baby Brokers is a term of endearment. Hat tricks, term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry. Hat trick is 3 successes in a limited time frame. So SIE 766 or SIE 663. You get the idea. Man, last Tuesday we had a lot of hat trickers. We call them hat trickers? I don't think we do, right? When a guy in hockey scores hat trick, we don't call him a hat tricker. We just say he's got a hat trick. Well, we had a lot of those people who performed the hat trick last week. We also have Reddit communities. We have a subreddit for Series 6. We have a subreddit for the SIE and Series 7. We have a subreddit for 63, 65, 66. And we have a subreddit for the Series 24. If you do win our drawing tonight, the way you register for that is you go to dean10atutoring.setmore.com. You go to the class tab and you'll see the coaching call. Almost everything on my booking page is not free. So there's a couple things on the booking page that are free. One of those things is the coaching call you may win this evening. We also do a weekly Q&A jam session. You can register for that there as well. So again, you don't win a tutoring session at a date and time of your choosing. What you win is a coaching call. It's 30 minutes. I sometimes run over, but that's $175 value, seeing as I charge $350 an hour for tutoring. All right, so let's see. Did I take care of all the housekeeping? I think so. Okay, let's see what's going on, Brian. Let me get rid of that.
Do it.
And boom, let's get rid of that. And off the races we go. Hey, yeah, what's up? Iori, I like it gaming. I love that avatar. I love that hair, man. I wonder if that is that an approximation of your real looks in your hair. You know, I got to get myself an avatar. They're saying in AI now, everybody should have their own personal avatar, so you could use like AI to answer calls and do things. Good evening, Gage. Good evening. I like that one too. Well, that's a good one too. Good evening. Take of the 66 again. I'm with you for this month. I love it. As we say, you come into a reason and a season. You miss the mark by 2. Oh, God. Those high almost passing scores, I think, are more exasperating than completely blowing it, right? We could ask the Kansas City Chiefs, what's worse? Like, barely losing on a bumble play. We're getting blown out. Heading liquor store now. Well, adult libations can be helpful to drown your sorrows, right? Taking the SIE first thing in the morning. Love it, Chrissy. So we're sending you good test vibes. Biggest advice I can give you is be confident in the execution of your study plan because it's over. You shouldn't be doing anything tonight. Get some rest. Be confident in yourself. Most importantly, Chrissy, tomorrow, be confident in your answers. Don't be trying to suck up to the exam. 63 from Italy. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's how exciting. How exciting. Marcel, beautiful New Orleans. I always tell Mom hello. I told her you gave permission for her to put the dice in her car, so I got to go out there and put them in her car. I haven't done that yet. I still haven't cleaned up my board to put up that license plate, Marcel, but I will have that up by next Tuesday. I got to take that other 66 sign down from there. And I told you, Marcel, I'm going to get Brian's butt to New Orleans one way or another. So whether it's a road trip in a Winnebago, whether it's a flight, we'll figure it out. That's got to be on the bucket list for sure. If you haven't been to New Orleans, that's got to be on the bucket list.
I know. My friends and family say the same thing.
Yeah, particularly, just because they know people who know you, Brian, know you would love New Orleans. I mean, yeah. I don't know of anybody who doesn't love New Orleans. I always worry about Las Vegas as much as we love Las Vegas, Brian. I always think they might just push the envelope a little too much, and then people are going to say, you know what, let's just go to New Orleans instead. 65 from Northwest Louisiana. So we got 2. Past the SIE, 6 and 63, all in the first time. I love it. That is the trifecta. That is the hat trick. So I don't know if we have a thing for 4 in a row, but you got this. Add that another testing victory. Love it. Love it. Love it. How good is the 100,000 practice exams? Well, I always think having more questions is better. Abundance is better than scarcity. I don't think the Series 7 for Dummies as a standalone is a good idea. But in terms of getting some extra questions for $30 or $5, I'm not going to throw rocks at it. Your thoughts, Brian?
Can I throw rocks at it?
Sure, if you want. Yeah, absolutely. We believe
I've seen that thing around for 25 years. I don't think it has the depth. Good diplomatic answer, not bad for a supplement. Just don't use it as your main source.
So, Brian, how many times have we had copycats of our content? And sometimes they don't even change the story. So I had somebody, Brian, who had Series 7 for Dummies, and he has the exact story I tell. And they call me and they told me I'm the copycat. I go, no, anybody who tells you I'm the copycat is the real copycat. That's my story. I live that. And they said, aren't you upset? I go, not really. I guess it's a form of flattery. But I had the CEO of E-Trade at the time in his marketing department, took my lectures and turned them into a book. And, you know, I was tempted to go after him on that part. I was going to say, okay, that's a little much, my friend. I don't know where that line is. I think, what is it, $30 out of pocket, Brian? $40?
Yeah, on Amazon, probably. Yeah.
You know, I we're trying to be diplomatic. I think having more resources is good, but you get what you pay for, right? So you can get Brian for $100, or you can get the Series 7 Dummies for, for 40. I think the value proposition is probably 4 times that, at least. All right. Woohoo! Love that, Melissa. You've been with us a while. I remember, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Melissa, I did give you, I think, a little bit of grief. I was tough love. And I think you responded and didn't throw us on the bus. In your honor, our celebration drink tonight is an El Tesoro Anejo. That's Espanol for the treasure. And I'm going to pour a little spot of that for you for your celebration toast. I got to come up with a limerick for our celebration toast. Boom, boom, boom. Brian, I was talking to a very senior person at Kaplan, and he was complimenting on the success of the YouTube channel. And then he said, and I didn't think that was going to work. And I said, oh, really? How come? He goes, well, Dean, your personality is a little too tough love. And I wasn't sure how the market was going to respond to that. I'm glad you didn't send that negative energy my way when I was starting the channel. So Melissa, I'm so excited for you. Thanks for victorious test takers. We always welcome back, Melissa, because there are people who just missed their mark. He told us this is on the way to the liquor store. It's always, I think, nice to buck up other people's spirit by circling back and just saying hi. I don't know, Melissa, why Brian, what people want to listen to Brian and Dean, but sometimes seeing a living, victorious test taker in the chat, I think, lifts spirits. So thank you so much. You'll always be welcome here on any Tuesday. If Melissa sticks around, you're welcome to, in chat, ask her what she thought. I think confidence is huge, Melissa. I always say, I had a guy today, and I said, I can't prove this, but anecdotally, being confident in yourself, being confident in your answers, I think could be worth as much as 10 points. You think it's a little high on the 10 points, Brian? Confidence?
Yeah, I usually say 68 to 78.
There you go. So
10 points. Yep.
And if you're going to miss it, just go down. I got a guy today. I told him, just go down in flames, man. If you're going to go down swinging, right? Be confident in your answers. Don't suck up. Don't kiss up to the answer. What if they meant they don't, right? So I'm so pleased with that one. And if you're Melissa, I'm pretty sure I'm recalling that correctly. But if you are, like I say, thank you so much for, not switching the channel just because I was a little aggressive with you. Hey, Dean and Brian, for the 63, is there anything we need to know about cryptocurrency? Digital assets have been showing up on NASA exams. I had a guy on debrief, Brian, said he got a question about Bitcoin having a finite number of coins. And the idea was that means, it's kind of an inflation hedge. I'm not sure if it's experimental. And to be honest with you, Providence, I don't even know what the total Bitcoin number is. Brian, your feedback, that's more, by the way, on 65, 66. I haven't had any debrief on 63 that there's been any digital asset questions, but that isn't called on the test cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. It's called digital assets on NASA exams. Is there anything in the 63 in the study guideline about digital assets? I don't think so.
I can't recall anything, but if it's good for the 65, 66, there's always the possibility you can show up.
Yeah. And Brian, how about this? I was so proud of myself. You would be proud of me, Brian. I didn't answer the guy's question. You want to know about Canadian broker dealers? And I said, very, very low probability you're going to see it. And I left it at that. He passed. He said,
on which exam?
It was the 65, I think.
Yeah.
And I said, very, very low probability. And then he passed today and he told me he didn't see it. I go, woo! Because people will be mad, right? If you tell them they're not going to see it. They do.
Well, historically, there has been one that shows up on the 63.
Yeah. Well, I think it's got, servicing.
But I've not heard it on 65, 66.
Yeah. Past the 63. Woo!
Lots of 63s in the house tonight.
Yeah, right on. You don't need to be sponsored for any NASA exam. Do most places once you have an insurance license as well. I don't know if I'd say most places. If you're talking about retail brokerage firms, most people would have the whole complement of registrations, securities, and life insurance. If so, do you need life insurance or health insurance too? I don't know. It depends on your firm. So, Lander, I wish I could be more helpful, but I'm not a life insurance person. And so, I'm the wrong person to ask about that. My comment would be it'd be dependent on the opportunity. And whoever that opportunity you're seeking will tell you, here's what we expect. I'm not quite sure why you would take the 63 unsponsored. I would have probably taken a 65 instead of a 63. Maybe you want to consider that. And I'm assuming you've done the SIE. If you haven't done that, go do that. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah. I would worry more about getting the job.
Yeah, there you go. This is where you lander.
63 is great. It's in your back pocket. Good job. Go get the job. And
Yeah,
they're going to tell you where you're going to need to go anyway.
Yeah. I think, Brian, you may be like me in this regard. I don't know. I'll see what you think. Lander, I've always believed that a job is better than no job. So, I wouldn't be as picky in the beauty contest. I think when you're starting out, you're not a judge, you're a contestant. And at some point, your career maybe has that pivot where now, like, I think of myself, Lander, is in the beauty contest, a judge, not a contestant. In other words, I had somebody I said, listen, that you got the wrong guy. I'm not, I'm the guy judging you. You're not judging me. But I would want you to get as good as a learning opportunity as you can. Because you're going to spend a lot of times with those. And in the beginning of the career, I know sometimes we don't have resources, but I would be much more concerned with the people I'm hanging out with and I can learn from and that learning opportunity than I would money. Because in our industry, if you stick around long enough, the money will take care of itself. Because, if your firm won't take care of you, somebody will. So that would be my thoughts. As Brian said, focus on the job, I think, and less on the registrations and licensing. I'm not saying don't invest in yourself as much as you can to make it easier for somebody to give you an opportunity, but that would be my thoughts. Brian, what do you think? Some job better than no job, or would you go no job?
And who knows? Some firms actually pay you to study.
There you go. Listen, I lose a lot of empathy, Brian, when I find out, like, we have a single mom, many single moms, and they can only study like before the kids go to school or after they all put in a full-time work, and they still pass the exam. And I think they're just special in my heart.
That's right.
And it makes me less empathetic, Brian, to people who are getting 4 months with pay and all they're supposed to be doing is passing the test.
Right.
A lot of them are young men and women that don't have any of those challenges of other things, kids and husbands and wives and family and all that other stuff. So past the 7 last month, 60 and wow. Woo-hoo! Love it. Love it. Love it. Cheers.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's not as rough as my mezcal I was doing. Good evening, Don. Good evening. With 65, do you ever leave an amount in the investment account to cover tax settlement? How is that managed? Well, no, it's not testable. There is what's called TEFRA, Withholding, Tax Equity Fiscal Responsibility Act, where the firm can withhold up to 20% if you don't have the documentation in place. But I don't think that's about the estate. And the estate question would be, we're not responsible for you settling the taxes on the estate. That would be the executor or executress of the estate. So, Don, I'm not sure you're going to encounter a question about, do you leave money? The answer would be no, if that's a 65 question. Do you ever leave an amount in the investment account to cover the tax settlement? No, and we don't manage that. That's completely, we contact the legal department would be the answer to that question. Your thoughts on that as a potential test question, Brian?
Boy, I have no idea where this one comes from.
I don't either, Don.
Yeah.
This makes us wonder who your test prep vendor is.
Exactly. I already have a couple of guesses.
I do too. I do too. I got to get on this test taker. Your point, Brian, I knew it was the vendor we were thinking about. The guy bought the stock at 25, and then he wrote bought a 25 put, and he sold short at 35, and then he bought a 35 call. Wow. And then, and then all the options got exercised, and basically he lost the premium because, I always feel sorry helping. We'll help you with any question, but I always feel sorry helping people with test prep vendor questions that Brian and I know they're never going to encounter on the actual exam. That's close to what I look like. I like it, man. I'm a little jealous. I love that.
Yeah.
I went to, I love Mom dearly, but, I was telling Brian, she had an eye exam and I was going to get some new glasses, and they have these wild glasses that I really have my heart set on. And I thought, man, these things are wild. They're like red and green and blue. I was thinking about doing that. So if I can't do the hair like that, maybe I have to make it up in my accessories.
There you go.
Welcome back. I think John's been with us for quite a few because I remember that because I always think of Johnny Walker Blue. Johnny Walker Blue. Oh, did I get out of things?
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm just thinking I'm out of sequence here.
There you go.
There you go. Woohoo! What are the key points? Well, this is a Tuesday evening live stream. John, I'm not being facetious. I would refer you to the podcast episode. The first episode in the podcast is Who Takes the 66, I think, and Why, Brian? Is that how we call that? Something like that.
We did that with 65, not the 66.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's an overview. The first video in each of the playlists would give you what you're asking.
Yeah.
The 66, I would tell you about half of it is laws and regs. The other half is investment vehicles. Brian and I always are surprised and take it, don't have hubris. Brian and I always say, John, you should have a little pep in your step coming off 2-0. You're going for the hat trick. There's no reason not to feel good about yourself as a victorious test taker, and you most certainly should. But then I think sometimes people get to the 66 and they see a little bit of familiar stuff and they go, oh, I know this stuff. And then they miss the mark. And as Brian and I discussed, a lot of times they miss the mark, surprisingly enough, on the investment side, not the regulatory side. So I would tell you, check out one of the overview videos I have. I have a 66 in 60 minutes. I have a 66 Mighty 90, the 66 in 90 minutes. I usually have those videos, John, for people the day before or morning of to get kind of in a flow state. But I think that would also serve your purpose here. It would highlight the key points. I wouldn't expect you to learn it off that video, but it'll target those points for you. Yeah, I want to make sure, don't be surprised. Yeah, don't be surprised. There's different things on that. Analytical methods, for example, there's more balance sheet stuff on it, source of financial information. So yeah, I think your mindset is the right one. Could you guys go over the business cycle, especially types of examples you will see in the exam? So Eric, you didn't tell us what exam you were taking, but in both the SIE and the 65, the business cycle is testable. I like Will Rogers' definition of recession and depression. Will Rogers said, a recession is when your neighbor is out of work, and a depression is when you're out of work. That's right. I would definitely know the definition of a recession, 2 calendar quarters of declining GDP. I would definitely know the definition of a depression, 6 calendar quarters of declining GDP. Right. Every time I hear somebody, our German friends have just had 2 calendar quarters of declining GDP. Lord John Maynard Keynes would be very enthused with what the government of Germany has decided to do. Eric, test question. They've decided to use fiscal policy, government spending and taxation to test question, stimulate demand. One of the problems in the business cycle is when there's a lack of demand and people who have the resources don't spend them, they hoard them, and other people don't. And so Mr. Kane said the government should step on the accelerator called government spending. They've said, Eric, they're going to spend $1 billion, $500 million on infrastructure, $500 million on defense. The other test question that shows up about business cycles, so not so much putting in order as you see there. Brian has the expansion, the peak, the contraction, the trough. But what would you do investment wise?
Exactly.
And so you're going to be tested on defensive stocks. Defensive stocks are companies and industries who deliver products and services resilient to the business cycle. And so the one that always shows up on the exam, Eric, is utility stocks. Nobody was going to call their utility company and say, I want to go back to the Stone Age. You might cut back on usage, but you're not cutting back entirely. Besides that, pharmaceuticals. If you're sick, I'm a doctor. I tell you need a drug. It's not a function of price. You need it, right? Particularly if I tell you your life is at risk. Food. Some people like tobacco would be at. I see Brian's chart there right now, right? Growth. We also have what's called secular growth. Secular growth, Eric, would be growth not dependent on the business cycle. I'm thinking like AI, Brian. Oh my God, these guys are dropping trillions of dollars. I mean, crazy amounts of money. That's really not dependent on the business cycle, right? So NVIDIA, for example. And I like it. You have infrastructure there in the business cycle, Brian. Is that what that is on your board there?
Defensive.
There you go. There you go. So
oftentimes they ask, what should you do when you come out of a trough? Right? Mm-hmm. So they put that word trough in your brain to kind of throw you off. But coming out of a trough is a good thing. That's when you're starting to look for growth, right?
Yeah. Eric, the other thing I would tell you is that you might see this in terms of sector rotation as an investment style. And I thought when we were in the pandemic, people were doing sector rotations. We went into the pandemic, went into defensive stocks. And then a year in, we thought we were out, and then they rotated into, hospitality. Another year. And so if you're trying to do sector rotation, it has a higher cost structure and potentially more risk, because if you miss that cycle, you're going to be toast. I think that's a nice overview. I don't think you're going to get asked. I know a lot of people like to have memory aid device, put the business cycle in sequence. I don't think you're going to have to do that at all. Any major recommendations who help on your page or Brian's? I'm not sure. Do we need major recommendations? I'm amazing. John, I don't know. I don't overthink it. I don't know if you're out. I get solicitations. I'm doing okay. So I don't need help. I don't know if you have recommendations, send to me. Series 7 Guru at guruexamprep.com. Most of the time I get those. I'm like, that's too much work. I think, Brian, people don't, Brian gives me grief for saying this. But, I've been very blessed, and I consider myself a retired stockbroker, and I don't really need to make any money. I got enough money to last me the rest of my last chapter here in life. And so sometimes people send me a recommendation. I go, that's too much work. I'm sorry. That interferes with drinking tequila and smoking cigars and hanging out with my brother. So, but yeah, if you got something, send it our way. Brian has a YouTube page, by the way, as well. It's kind of different because he's has his video programs he's selling, which I think are good value, but he does have some good free stuff over there, particularly if you're taking like a 24. The videos that are there, some of them people just I've never heard this except from your YouTube channel, Brian. My 24s who watch your buy and sell, it put me in tears. I finally understand it. Oh,
changes their lives.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's crazy. Yeah. I thought, John, sometimes about making a not a copycat of Brian's video, but every time I think about it, I go, why? That's a great video the way it stands. I think you gave me permission. I haven't done it yet, Brian. I thought I had permission to put that in my 24 playlist. Your buy and sell out. Yeah, I need to put that in there for people because I'm a
retired stockbroker too, Dean.
There you go. Don't we enjoy ourselves?
Yes, we do.
How blessed are we? I mean, we're pretty damn blessed. By the way, if I always say, if you're poor and you deserve to be rich, the securities industry is for you. I mean, Brian and I both come from very, very humble beginnings, and the securities industry has been very good to us. I think that's what those baseball players say from the Dominican Republic, right? Oh, baseball has been very good to me. Good evening, Dean. I missed myself. Oh, man. I do, Slim, have a recommendation. I don't know how fresh the hurt is, but I have an entire video called You Failed, Is It Over? Spoiler alert. The answer is no. I have 5 recommendations about what to do. I'll give you the first one, and you can watch the video. The first one is to do an intellectual debrief with yourself using the Series 7 content outline. So I want you to go get the Series 7 content outline. I want you to go through it. I want you on each line to put a plus, a 0, or a minus. Plus means you intellectually owned it. You don't think that was it. 0 means par. Counterintuitively, what we're looking for is the minuses. The things that you thought, oh, man, that was when I didn't get that. And what we're looking for is a lot of minuses because we can plug that gap. Now, the warning, do that first. That's the first recommendation. And then refresh, reset, and you can see my other 4 recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. One other point, you got to work on getting all the things below par and all the things at par and all things above par. Keep the above par there and bring everything up. Because how many times, Brian, have we seen somebody who missed the mark twice? Don't put out negative vibes. But what happens is they plug the gap on the thing they were weak on, not realizing the test is random. And then the things are okay on, they fall a little bit because they weren't working on that. And then they miss it again. So I want to make sure, Slim, that you overlearn so that you can take down any draw. The draw, I'm wishing for you the dream draw. Everything you study for shows up, right? But you got to be able to take down the face of death draw. I had somebody make a whole video, Brian, about how you shouldn't be thinking about the draw on the test. Like, that's ridiculous.
I know where that comes from.
Thank you for the tough love, Melissa. Thank you. You know, some people don't respond to it, but you certainly responded, and look where you're at now. Woohoo! You're in the industry, so love it. By the way, Melissa, and then it reinforces to me that, you know, I should not try and, you know, not be that. you know, hey, I'm a tiger in Chinese, and tigers don't change their stripes. So.
It's actually an interesting point, isn't it, Dean? Because both of us, from time to time, we have to give some tough love. We look down our nose and point our finger and say, you're deficient here. You got to get this up, and you got to get it up this week, right? Or the test is going. You know, sometimes you got to do that. You got to be the.
Well, AP, you know, right? AP, Brian, didn't he just fall into this trap? Listen, AP, I don't like the question at all. I have nothing to do with you passing your test. I don't know any data about that. If you're relying on Dean telling you you're going to pass, that's a bad spot to be in. You need to be confident that you don't need me to affirm your passing. You need to affirm your passing. So AP, here's what I want you to do. Guaranteed 100% pass rate. I've never had anybody fail the exam who follows this piece of tough love. I want you right now, you can do it on a live stream or when we're done tonight. I want you to go into your bathroom. I want you to look in the mirror and I want you to say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest Series 7 test taker of them all? AP, AP, AP. Hoorah! Now, I also, AP, want you to do that in the morning. So we wake up in the morning, same thing. We're going to go in the bathroom, look in the mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest Series 7 test taker of them all? AP, 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 woo! One more time, AP. About question 50 or so, I want you to take a break. While you're taking the test, a strategic pause. I want you to go to the restroom at the Prometric site. I want you to look in the mirror, and one last time. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest test taker of them all? Listen, I had a guy who actually, AP, I'm teasing about the Prometric site, but I had a guy who said he did that, Brian. I thought, oh, that'd be so fun. Wouldn't it be fun? You're in the Prometric site and you're somebody like AP.
I learned a very important lesson from you, Dean, one time, and I now have incorporated it in some of my stuff. You notice that sentence he's written.
Yeah.
Why is there a question mark there? It should be an exclamation point. Not
Yeah, it
am
should
I
be.
going to pass
So
this?
AP,
I'm going to pass the series.
yeah,
7.
this should, the AP, you should have said, it's okay. Listen, you're going to circle back and tell us you passed. Do send me an email tomorrow, series 7 guru at guruexamprep.com with your report of your victorious test taker. But what we will put a preferred AP is that this was phrased, Dean, I'm going to pass this series 7 tomorrow with an exclamation point.
Boom.
End of story. Now, what Brian is talking about, AP, is that when I'm teaching class, a lot of times people put in the chat the right answer with a question mark. And it really jams up the chat because we got like 15 people. And surprisingly, AP, they're always the right answer. I mean, 99% of the time, somebody who either verbally has a question mark in their voice or in the chat. And so on the first day of my classes, I tell people, I do not want to see any question marks in the chat. No question marks. If you have a question, just end it with an exclamation point, and I will know that the exclamation point is actually a question mark. But we want to see those question marks. So all that to say, AP, the answer is yes, you're going to pass your test tomorrow, but only if you do the mirror on the wall. 20, there you go. Well, thanks. Huge Cat plays. There you go, 21 million. Taking the series, by the way, the follow-up, I think, again, this is debrief, and they have experimental questions on digital assets. And I think what would go with this question about the 21 million hard cap is the idea of inflation. It's hard to have inflation if you're not printing money, right? So if it's a fiat currency like the US dollar, where how blessed are we that we're printing little green pieces of paper that the rest of the world will accept as, having value. There's some countries that print their paper and nobody wants it. But anyways, that's what I think the follow-up would be to that thing about a hard cap on the Bitcoin. Kind of scary. I saw a major person who was saying they're worried about just that the dollar is losing some of its cachet as the world reserve for its currency, and that people are using gold and crypto. That's kind of scary. Taking the 63 on October 30th, SIE November 29th. Plan to use achievable, plan to start studying 63 today. Well, will that be enough? Absolutely. No, I think that's fine. I'm not worried achievable on SIE. I have enough content on my channel you could pass the SIE. But if you're going on to like 7, I'd be a little worried about achievables practice test scores as it relates to the actual exam. But on SIE, I don't think you're at risk. And I think that's enough. Good evening, Brian and Dean. I missed my 1 point. Is this the same one or different? What's that?
Another one missed by 1.
Any suggestions? Well, if you joined us earlier, you test in 25 days. I made my recommendations earlier in this podcast. So just go back. I also linked to a video. It'll be in the video description called You Failed. Is it over? Spoiler alert. The answer is no. The first recommendation is to do an intellectual debrief with yourself. You can watch the first part of this or watch that video, and I'll go over the other 4 recommendations about how to respond to the misfortune. Good news, there's lots of people in our business who are very, very successful who have had the misfortune of passing their test, some of them more than once. So my best broker was a guy named John, and he used to go out, Brian, and tell people, if anybody knows this stuff, it's me. I had to take the test 5 times. People invest with you because they like you and they trust you, not because you can pass exams. Now, we don't give passing scores anymore, Slim, but I wouldn't be worried about resending you down there. Most firms, you get over 60, they'll send you back down to test again. But anyways, I was more concerned when they gave out passing scores, Brian. I get a guy over 90. I'd say, Brian, you just scored over a 90 on the Series 7. He would think I'm about to give him kudos. And I'd say, I think I should fire you now. And Brian says, why? I said, well, how am I going to supervise you, Brian, if you're smarter than me? You're always going to be one step ahead of me. And all you really proven is you're a bigger jerk as the person who wrote the test. I think I should just get rid of you now. Right? So maybe that's why they got rid of the scores. Just past 66. Woohoo! All right. Woohoo, Kevin. Wow. Ooh. Any last minute advice for the 63 using Notman? Well, I don't know what last minute is. Scoring 90s, you're right where you need to be, my friend. You should be fine. I don't have any advice. Rinse and repeat or get some good night's sleep. listen, how neat is it, Brian, when we know people are not at risk, they put in the work and now they just got to go stick the landing, right? So I don't have anything to add to that. And I'd be nervous to add anything because I might, I practice the Hippocratic Oath. I wish my dentist did. I got to go to see my dentist again for like the third time on the same tooth. I'm like, listen, he's made a plan for me, Brian, to give him thousands of more dollars. And I said, listen, I'm not going to give you more until you fix the original problem. And what happened to the Hippocratic Oath? First do no harm. How come I'm more hurt when I leave than when I got here? That's anyways, I get tutoring sessions, Brian. And sometimes people, I can't like block it. And I'll show up in the Zoom link and they're testing the next day. One of two things. It's so wonderful when it's just an insurance policy and we know they're going to pass. Like this, like Pranav, like you. But what's also disappointing is when there's just the timeline is collapsed on them. I go, there's nothing we really can do to fix this before tomorrow. So what I tell those people in those situations, both, I say, our first agenda in this last day or two is to do no harm. We just don't want to go backwards. We're not trying to go any more forwards. We've matriculated down the field. Let's kick the field goal and get out of here, right? No sense doing something stupid, right? So I think you're in good shape. Passed the 7 last week. Woo! More in the week has been watching the 5 weeks of Notman. Well, Brian Marks, I love everybody at Notman Marks. Some of them are our former proteges. I think I told you, Brian, Marshall Burak's over there at Notman. So I love them. So, but I'll take it. I can tell Brian Marks, hey, somebody told me to watch my videos than they did your things. There you go. Do you guys have a lot of overlap? Well, we warned you about that. I think we should start lying to people, Brian, and saying no, there's no overlap. You should take each exam on its own, and what's between the covers of that book. Now, that being said, I think to think there is overlap is a very dangerous thing, because what happens is then you're skimming over things that look like overlap that are not. They look like something on your 7, but if you read it a little bit, it's not actually coming at the same angle, so to speak. Particularly like analytical methods, we mentioned some other things. So there is some overlap, but I would prefer you pretend there's not. And then, as we said, Anthony, some people it's not a challenge for them, but other people really struggle on that 66, even when they've done very, very well on their Series 7. And I think sometimes what happens, and as Brian and I are always kind of surprised, that statistically you wouldn't think it's the investment vehicle part of that exam, because you just passed 125 questions, 91 which were investment vehicles. But I would say the flavor is different, I guess, as I would say that. Brian, how would you answer this question?
Absolutely. Again, if you don't mind a little tough love, right? Yeah. We mentioned this on the podcast. Anybody taking the 65, 66, you must watch that podcast. Yeah. But the 66, again, because of coming out of that with a huge victory on the Series 7, right? And you go in there and the first 5 units are all on stocks, bonds, and options. It's like, I've already seen this stuff before. Yeah. No, you haven't, because NASA writes their test questions differently. There tends to be a little bit more of a gap between the publishers and the exam. You got to be careful with it and make sure your test taking skills are honed. Because just like Dean said, some people get in there, they get surprised, right? And their confidence starts to wane and their score starts going down. You got to go in there with just as much effort and energy as you did with that 7. That's the way you pass the 66.
And Anthony, I would add to that, to just Brian's point, the phraseology is different. Right. NASA exams, you almost have to read the question once just to, try and figure out what the question's about, right? And then you got to kind of say, did I answer the question, right? Peru, I love it. Alejandro, I love it. Peruvian cuisine is one of my favorites. We had a really high-end Peruvian restaurant in San Francisco. It was so good. A little bit of a mix in Peru, from what I understand, Alejandro, at least in the Peruvian restaurants I've been, are certainly a lot of seafood, but then a little Asian cuisine thrown in there, Asian fusion. Love it. Studying for your SIE and then 63. A friend recommended your channel. Well, I'll tell you what it was made my channel number 1 is the contributions that we make on the channel to test taking victories, and then the referrals from those victorious test takers. Right. So It's pretty easy business to, I think, operate in. If people pass their test, they're happy. They don't pass the test, they're not happy. And then hopefully, we didn't contribute to the negative part, right? So, like having buddy there, I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. I don't have a financial background or experience like the SIE, self-sponsored, to try and stand out from the others. I love it. Lander, hey, kudos to you, man. Listen, if I'm in the business of acquiring human capital and two people come in and they have that, it looks like the same curriculum vitae, and then I notice, Lander, that you have passed 3 exams, that could be the tilt, right? I know you can take a test. If you can pass the 65, I'd be willing to bet as a hiring person that you could pass the 7. So love it. The Lander, the world needs more people with initiative, right? I mean, how refreshing would that be, Brian, when somebody comes in and says, I've been looking for this opportunity and I've already invested. I've taken my SIE, my 63, my 65. Wow, what a breath of fresh air that would be for a lot of folks. I always want too much hubris. Where did it go? Oh, excuse me. So yeah, hubris has been around since ancient Greek times, right? So, I'm a sports fan. I know Brian is, and how many times did we see that on the field? Did you see that guy, Brian? He ran across the touchdown line. He dropped the ball before he was in the end zone. I'm like, now what do you think, Brian? Tough love. I think we should cut the guy immediately, right?
He might not last the week.
No, Gage, good news. You get a chance at redemption, right? So we were just talking about this guy. Maybe the coach says, Brian, am I ever going to see that again? Maybe
that level? Yeah, boy, I don't know. Maybe in college.
Brian's saying you should already have that in place before you get there, right?
Like he's a professional. He should know better.
He's a professional. How much math do you expect? John, I think a lot of people overestimate how much math there is. I think max 3-4 questions. Most of them are simple function calculator questions. So yeah, I call it a siren song. It's again, John, it can be detrimental even to math geeks. I've had math geeks who, Dean, I'm great at math, and they think they're going to get like 15 points. I go, well, I hate to break the news to you, maybe 3 or 4. Most of it is performance measures, current yield, total return, that kind of thing. The other math, like capital asset pricing model, discounted cash flow, those kind of things are mainly recognition of the input and the output. So your thoughts on math on 66? I would actually, John, add this to 65, same answer. Brian?
The average number of actual calculator questions on the Series 66 is 1.
Wow.
However, there are 3 to 4 questions that, just what Dean was saying, was asking about the inputs and outputs, that you have to kind of know the math behind it. For instance, knowing the difference in the math between a current ratio and an acid test ratio, right? Which one, therefore, would be a larger number, that kind of thing. So there are some conceptual questions based around the math input output, but the calculator problem, it averages 1.
There you go. And John, now that Brian's told you that, we don't care if you come back and tell us you got 50 of them. We're not going to believe you. I would tell you that whatever people are not comfortable with, they swear they had 200 of them. I said, well, the exam was only 100. Now, Eric, if you were the one who asked about the business cycle and you were taking a 66, I think Brian and I went way, way overkill. There's way more economics. The economics discussion we had earlier in the podcast was more for an SIE 65 test taker, not a 66. I think about the main thing there would be that idea of defensive sector rotation, investment stuff around it, not so much the fiscal monetary policy stuff. No math. Well, there you go. Didn't touch the calculator once. Well, there we go. So proof, right? If I can't get a job or internship at a BD right out of the gate, what would be some other related jobs that would be relevant and helpful? I don't know. We don't do career counseling on the channel. I think a bank would be a good place to start. Almost every bank has a broker-dealer subsidiary. So maybe start at the bank, and then you could network with the investment specialist who usually resides in a bank branch. Tell them it's something you're thinking about pursuing. So, yeah, I think a bank, I would say an insurance company is another adjacent field. So banking, insurance would be kind of where I maybe would be looking, Lander. Well, hello, long time no see, test taker. What's up? Que pasa? Take a 63 on, I like that. Ooh, that's cool. Is that really you, John, there behind the NASDAQ screen there? That's pretty cool. Or was that AI? Nowadays with AI, I could put myself anywhere I want to be. Failed the first time by 3 points. I know I'm going to pass this time, but I'd still love to hear words of wisdom and encouragement. Well, be the test. John, let the test come to you. Brian and I, we didn't talk about this earlier, Brian, we've had 2 people who missed exams by 1 point. You said 3 points, John, and here comes the tough love. Almost always I start by saying, did you change answers? And almost every time, the persons who came close say yes to that. Then the second answer I ask is, how many answers did you change? And sometimes it is shocking, Brian, how many people change like way too many answers. I mean, we don't have to
tell me, man.
We don't think you should change any answers. So my words of wisdom, John, would be confident in the execution of this renewed study plan. Be confident in yourself. And most importantly, be confident in your answers. Do not be changing answers. I think when people miss by 1, 3, 4 points, it's not knowledge deficit. I think it's some other variable of some sort, changing answers, family emergency, whatever. It's not that you didn't learn the information. There you go. Start as a banker. There we go. I think I would go for an adjacent field, banking, insurance, something like that. Thank you. There we go. Love it. Bonding together. Hey, that's the other reason to come on Tuesday night. Brian and I practice tough love, but we have some people here who are nice people and will send some positive energy your way. Woohoo.
Lander made a good point, Dean.
What?
Study the points that you are weakest on, right?
Yeah.
And we can tell that from 2 things, from your prior test results. Which of those 4 areas of the Series 66, which 2 areas were the lowest areas? That's a pretty good indicator. The Kaplan material, I think STC and some of the other ones do it as well, do run those performance trackers on their simulated exams. That's all the data you need to determine which are the weakest area. And again, the chain is only as strong as those weakest links. So you got to strengthen those weak areas.
Yeah.
Whether it's the largest part of the test or the smallest part, I don't care. We're looking for 5 to 7 points, especially if you only missed it.
Yeah, and then make sure the other areas you were strong in don't go down.
That's exactly right.
RJ, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us on LinkedIn. We broadcast every Tuesday to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube is our preferred platform. So it always warms my heart when I see it. Brian is putting on his board there, RJ, our 4 critical functions to being a broker: finding a customer, opening an account, make an investment, what happens afterwards. Of those 3 functions, number 3, making an investment, is 91 questions. Of those 91 questions, 20 plus or minus on options, 20 plus or minus on munis, 20 plus or minus on mutual funds. And besides the product knowledge, which is testable, you then have to apply that product knowledge to suitability. The 3 styles of questions you get are recognition, 2 types of munis or RGOs or derivatives. Practical application, what is tax-free equivalent yield, for example? What is parity? And then judgment. Judgment are the hardest questions on Series 7. And a lot of them are judgment questions or suitability questions. Like, what should you do given this scenario? And almost always you're going to get those to a 50-50. But there are pivots that are really important. For example, in options, if I say generate additional income or supplement dividend income, you got to be able to link that to a covered call as an option strategy. If I say hedge protection, you got to link that to either buying a call to protect a short stock position or buying a put to protect a long stock position, right? If I say your client thinks the stock is either going way up or way down, is uncertain about which direction, you got to link that to buying a straddle. Now, I do have a whole suitability playlist on my channel where I do 6 videos on this kind of thing. Munis, if you see tax bracket in the question, you should immediately know, oh, this is a muni question of some sort. Uncomfortably high tax bracket, right? When you hear mutual funds, you think, oh, professional management, diversification, ease of ownership. So those are about 20 plus or minus. Geez, those. So now the 91, that's like 60 questions on Brian's board behind him. So make sure you pay attention to that weighting as well. How much should I leave for remediation before the actual test? Well, Brian and I think that 7-10 days out is when you should do your first kind of intellectual inventory by taking a practice test. And then you should take as many hours remediating those practice tests as doing them, no more than one a day. So if I was your, corporate trainer, RJ, and I say, okay, here we are 10 days out, how many practice tests are you going to do? I don't really care what that number is, to be honest with you. It could be 3, 4, 5. I think 4 or 5 would be about right. But then I say, okay, let's check in with those scores and let's identify how we're going to remediate. How many times do we hear this, Brian and RJ? Here we go. I had a person who was scoring in the 60s. They were doing a practice test every day, getting 60. I go, stop. This is a sign that you need to stop and do remediation before you take the next one. Why would you want to do 10 practice tests and keep getting a 60? That means you got to lay some more base. You got to identify, as we said, Brian, using the performance tracker, got to circle back a little bit. So let's say you do 4 of those to answer your question, right? 7-10 days out, that gives you another 4 or 5 days for actually remediating those practice tests and identifying areas that you're going to, plug the gap in and get better at. So I think 7-10 days out, Brian, is that what you would say? You should have read the book, done all your quizzes, got all that stuff done, and should be turning to practice tests and remediation 7-10 days out. 7 this morning and take it Friday. You should be fine, Jackie Boy. I'll let Brian answer, but Brian has pretty good correlation. And you're taking Friday. So the idea that we're not going to find you 3 or 4 more points between now and then, I think you can. So I'm not concerned. But been 80s on the Kaplan. Well, Brian's tough. We talked about tough love. Brian, your thoughts on a 70 on your practice test? Let me first say this first, Jackie. I'll just, from my own experience, I use Brian's practice tests a lot. And my experience is if I was a betting person, somebody told me they got a 70 on Brian and they're testing Friday, I think you're going to pass. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, and Dean and I talk about this a lot. Every person will have some variance between their practice final scores and what they score on the test. Now, again, remember, mine's not the end-all to end-all. It's a good indicator, yes. But what I like to do is actually take all of the practice finals and find the average. That's probably a more consistent judge as to how you're going to do on the test. Because not all of your exams on Kaplan were an 80. You might have had a 72, a 78, a 77, an 81, and then mine a 70. Sometimes if you're a big statistics guy, you throw out the lowest and throw out the highest and take an average, right? So that's probably a better judge, is the average score of all of your your simulated exams.
Alejandro, no, the answer is no. We're not going to go over questions in a live stream on a Tuesday night, actual questions. Alejandro, you can go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. You are welcome to be my guest for either the coaching call or the weekly Q&A jam session, and I'd be more than happy to do that with you. I would comment that if you miss your mark on the SIE, it's not going to be options. The options are mainly on the SIE recognition, who is the OCC, when do options expire, index options settle in cash. It's more that kind of stuff. Maybe one strategy question. Now, if we're going on 7, it's a much bigger deal, but I don't think options on SIE are anything other than recognition, 3 or 4 max. Maybe one strategy, buy a put on stock, done. Brian, your thoughts on options on SIE?
Absolutely right. Average about 2 to 4 on the SIE. Yeah. You might get 2, you might get 4. Half of them, or at least half of them, are recognition, and 1, maybe 2 if you got a bad draw on strategy. It's not like Dean said, it's not going to make or break the SIE.
And then Alejandro, I have, I think 4 or 5 SIE practice playlists. And you can certainly go to options and watch that, and particularly basic options. And I cover everything you can encounter.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. There you go. Woo. Can you please get a general overview on insurance products? Well, again, it's a live stream Q&A. It's not a free tutoring session in the evening. I think an overview on insurance could take us a long time. I'll make the same comment I made a moment ago. If you tell us you missed the 66 because of insurance products, I'm going to say you had bigger problems elsewhere. Maybe 1 or 2 questions on like variable life, universal life, 1 or 2. The vast majority of the questions are going to be on mutual funds with insurance wrappers.
Annuities.
Brian got it. What is an annuity? Let's play Jeopardy. Mutual fund with insurance wrapper. What is a variable annuity? So you're going to get tested on those variable annuities. I have several lectures on that. And make sure you understand that money going into the annuity, money coming out, the tax consequences in and out versus qualified versus non-qualified. And again, if it's one of those variable life or universal life questions, maybe guess B, a sign of the universe, and move on. Well, Joe, I mean, maybe it's just me. We're getting a lot of these kind of questions. What's the most important points? Well, it would be helpful if you told us, Joe, what exam you were actually taking. So, Joe, why don't you put that back in the chat? We'll get take another shot at it. But the memorize or understand, it depends on the exam. And, I'm not a big fan of memorization. I'm a big fan of knowing it. There we go. Secondary, our management fees drawn from the portfolios. They certainly are. What should you know about fees? Well, you should know that, there is a problem with having monkeys harvest bananas, Sam. And the problem with having monkeys harvest bananas is they eat the product. Be careful. The management fee is typically the largest single expense to a mutual fund. Be careful. The load is not an expense to the mutual fund. That's an expense to the client. You should definitely be able to contrast closed-end ETFs with traditional, plain vanilla open-end funds. And then you should know about fees, 12B1 fees. You should definitely know 1/4 1% as a promotional expense, not an expense managing money, promotional expense for it, and still refer to yourself as no load. 3/4 of 1% over the life. It looks like we don't know what exam you're taking, but this would be germane to every exam. True. UITs are very low probability. But when you get a unit investment trust question, Sam, it's to know the assets are professionally selected but not actively managed, right? So they have a lower cost structure because of that. Brian, your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I think we're worrying a little bit too much about management fees for closed ends versus
Yeah. But no, I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's more of a general question rather than specific to the type of fund.
Well, I think the 65, 63 is a combination. It would be a 66. So since you already have the 63, I would go for 65 and then have the 66 as my backup, or vice versa.
That's right.
But yeah, you need one of those to charge fees, right? To be an investment advisor representative. Right now, Ethan, this is a good discussion for everybody. Right now, Ethan is an agent of a broker-dealer, period, full stop. He's an agent of a broker-dealer. There are 4 securities professionals: broker-dealers, agents of broker-dealers, investment advisors, and investment advisor reps. And right now, Ethan is on the broker-dealer side. With his 63 or 65, he now can not only be an agent of a broker-dealer, he can become an investment advisor representative. Passing either of those exams, Ethan, will make that so. So, sometimes you don't have to wait 30 days. If you miss your 66, sometimes I'll recommend to somebody. Vince has not been in here a while, but one of my favorite students, I knew he knew it pretty well, the 66, but he missed the mark. I said, why don't you go take the 63, 65 next week? And he did, and he passed, and he's back in business, right? So I'm taking the 24 next Friday. All right, general securities principal in the house. And using training consultants. I'm not sure, Phil, if you follow our Reddit R Series 24, but it is always shocking to me how many 24s are bigger whiners than Series 7s? I mean, oh my God. They all whine about their test prep vendor, whether it's Kaplan or training consultants or Past Perfect or Notman Marks. They have no lack of accountability on missing the mark on the 24. It's got to be the test prep vendor. And just today, I had, by the way, and I stay out of it because people, I don't know why. I'm not a Kaplan person. I'm agnostic. I just like Kaplan because I think they got the best Q bag, but I stay out of it because, boy, why step in the middle of a gunfight between these people? And today, somebody said they were blaming training consultants, and 2-3 other principals showed us. I used them. That's all I used, and I passed. So I like the 80. Now you're scoring 60s. Anytime you test change vendors, that happens because of the phraseology is different. So I wouldn't let that be a body blow to your confidence. I would just stick with that STC. Those scores will rapidly come back up as you adjust to STC's phraseology. I like that you have more than one vendor to look at because what you're looking for is confirmation, right? And I have a 24 playlist where there's a Kaplan 24 practice test you can watch me go through. So now you got a Kaplan one too. So you should have, I like that you have more resources, right? So just make sure. The other thing I would warn you about, you having lots of resources, make sure you don't get too many voices in your head, right? So what you're looking in for is confirmation. Don't, training consultant says it this way and Kaplan says it that way. That's not where you want to be. You want to kind of be looking at that. One of the reasons I always am comfortable inviting Brian to participate, and thank you for doing so, Brian, is I know that our voices aren't that different, right? If I thought Brian was going to do it some completely different way or say something some completely different way, I'd say, hey, we don't want to cloud people's minds, right? We're trying to, it's like a coach, right? You don't want to have too many coaches. So don't be looking for that. Be looking for the content, the good news of having that extra content and being able to confirm test issues is what I would say to that. Any idea what tests are more accurate? No, I think that's fool's gold. Anybody who ever asks us about what test printer has the best questions that simulate the exam, I say, Brian. No, I'm joking. That's not where you want to be. Where you want to be is own the concept conceptually so you can answer any question. So I think it's fool's gold to think you're going to find some test prep vendor who has questions that are like on the actual test. All of the vendors work very hard, and you will find, no matter who your vendor is, a question, 4 or 5 questions. You go, oh, I remember that one. I like Brian to get to the first question on a test I know the right answer to. I go, woo! So learn the information. Don't focus on practice questions.
If I may just add one more point to that, especially for the Series 24. Yeah. I typically always recommend multiple vendors for that 24 because you can generally pick up a couple of points from each one.
That's right.
So even though the scores are different, you're probably going to pick up a few more points from the STC that may have not been on training consultants or vice versa. And then you do Dean's explicated series, Kaplan's 24 exam, and you might pick up a few more. I generally will recommend 2 vendors always for the 24.
By the way, I would add that, Brian. For all test takers, we realize not all of you maybe have the resources of a 24. That being said, I don't believe in monogamy when it comes to testing. If anybody can help you get more points, then you should take advantage of that. Right. So, it's not a time to be locked in. We have some companies, Brian, who tell their test takers not to use any sources other than that which they were provided. And boy, that's kind of short-sighted. Yeah. What is it with the quick overviews tonight? I mean, the Q&A live stream isn't about overviews. It's bringing a particular question about a particular topic to the live stream for Brian and I to answer and help you with. So a non-discrimination is a part of ERISA in qualified plans. In other words, you can't discriminate amongst the employees in the 401k in terms of how they're vested and contributions, things like that. Erica, not a target-rich environment. Again, find a more particular question you'd like to ask us based on a practice question, a QID. You can send that to explication request at guruexamprep.com, or you can join us for the jam session. And again, same in my jam session. You join me for that. People bring particular questions. All right. So this third time is the charm, right? Pass master. There's why I switched again. What exam should I aim for? I think mid-70s is where I'd like it to be, but we have to take into account that, this is the third time and it's pretty serious because you don't pass this time, you're going to have a 180-day wait period. So I've heard Susie at PassMaster, I've heard, a lot of variance in people who use PassMaster. Some people love it. Some people not so much. I don't like the variance. I think, I would like it to be one thing, right? Like I love them or I hate them or whatever.
Consistent. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I think you made a good choice here. Mid-70s, but taking into account, we got to be a little more disciplined on this third attempt. Brian, your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Switching the captain is best idea you could do. Yeah.
Well, Eric, I hope you respond as well as Melissa did to Tough Love. Don't come back next Tuesday asking for overviews or, what should I make? Bring a particular question that you found in the practice tests that you would like us to, help you with. Right. Ooh, looks like we're almost ready for it. Was the beverage neat? It is. It's a tequila. I never would put a ice cube in my tequila. I do put my tequila sometimes in the freezer, kind of like my Russian friends do with their vodka. I've been known to do that. I do put I was doing Johnny Walker Blue, and I put a cube in there, and somebody gave me some grief. I go, I hate to break this to you, my friend, but the ice cube is not for coldness. It's to open up the scotch. So not like I'm putting it in a bunch of it. So I am drinking it neat. 66 coming, start work on this coming Monday. All right. Woo! Should I bite if you have the resources, Larson, please do bite the bullet. Make an investment yourself, right? You got STC and Kaplan? I think so. Yeah. Why not? I'll help you with any study materials. It's just easier because I have access to the Kaplan Q Bank backstage. Confident on munis, 2 weeks. That's great. 2 weeks out with a 68 and you feel confident on munis. I think that's great, man. Smooth sailing, T-Dog. Love it. Is that possible? No, that's not possible. If you tell me you didn't have an immunity or option question on your 7, that's just because you were so comfortable with them. They didn't register on your brain housing group. Another LinkedIn, Dan. Hey, woohoo. Can you please enumerate why a mutual fund exchange is a taxable event? Because it's called constructive receipt, Dan. The IRS says, Dan, outside of your retirement plan, if you have this in the American Funds Growth Fund, and then you switch it into the money market fund, as far as the IRS is concerned, you could have had that money for that redemption. That's called constructive receipt, and you're going to pay taxes on it. Does it increase the cost basis? Well, yeah, cost basis go up because you're buying new shares. Dividend reinvestment programs are very testable. So, Dan, I tell the mutual fund, I don't need the dividends or capital gains, just reinvest them. It's called a DRIP. As the capital gains realized at the time of the exchange, yes, redemption of the fund is going to be a taxable event. I had a guy, Dan, he had a 6 and he joined me in a 7 class. We were going over this concept. He said, Dean, I learned this the hard way. He said, when I got my 6, they gave me an orphaned account. And the orphaned account that they gave me had this huge position in this growth fund. And I did call them and I said, hey, why don't we put down a money market and redeploy a different asset allocation model? And then they were mad when they had an $80,000 capital gains tax. And I said, well, I'd be mad too. Nobody expects you to be an accountant, but we do expect you to have a general understanding of the tax consequences of those investments. I'll give you your board. Before I give Brian his board, Dan, please note, this question is very testable. Eric, this is the kind of question I want you to bring next Tuesday. Some specifics, right? Some meat on this thing that we can get at. Brian, what do you got on the board there for us?
I don't think we know what exam this is, but this is very testable.
Every exam is true of, isn't it?
Pretty much for the 7 as well. What I believe Dan was first asking was, what if we take money out of the Vanguard Growth Fund and put it into the Vanguard Income Fund? Right? As Dean said, it's constructive receipt. You just chose to put it in a new fund. Or think of it this way, it's like buying one stock, selling it, and buying another stock, right? It's a capital gain. Anytime you realize a capital gain on an asset, it's taxable. So this is the exchange that he was talking about, is taxable. Same thing. If you receive dividends and or capital gains and say, no, thanks, just put it back and buy more shares. That's still a taxable event. And they are very, very testable
Yeah.
Depending on the test you're taking.
The IRS, the IRS calls that
These are
constructive.
all taxable events. Yeah.
Constructive receipt. You could have had the money as far as the IRS is concerned. You could have.
That's right.
Are you friends or enemies with Ken Finnan? I'm neither. All I ask of Ken is to compete on the level and keep my name out of his mouth and stop posting stupid shit about me. So, if he would just compete on the level and, stop copying my content. I mean, he just put out an SIE content outline that is exactly the kind of thing I've done. I think he'd have more views if he was a little more original. My channel has 2 million more views, and I have a problem with Ken buying fake subscribers on his YouTube channel and saying he's got 100,000 test takers who trust him when 50,000 of them are fake subscribers. So you got me on a bad day. I've also told Ken and Michael, I believe in reciprocity. So anything they're going to throw my way, coming right back at you, man. I'm a Marine. I do not turn the other cheek. I return fire. So
let's see you, Dean.
What's that?
Bring back your picture.
Oh, Brian. Yeah, sorry, Brian. That was all Brian. Brian said all that, not me.
They are the best of friends.
There you go. We love it. I told you we contribute to testing victories. That's what makes it work. Tested next week, scored 78 on suitability. You're great. Do you think
Nice.
I'm in a good spot? Wonderful spot.
Nice.
58 on the first try was 7. That's knowledge deficit error. And that means you didn't have enough base to know what you were being asked and knowing what answers were being offered to you. So you got to pretend that never happened and you got to start over again. Right? So understand basics for wood problems. November 1st, any advice? Yeah, check out my video. You failed. Is it over? Spoiler alert. No, watch that video. I have 5 recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. Save me a few questions. Yeah, Brian's got some pretty spot on questions.
Thank you.
Taking the past perfect you're looking good, particularly on past perfect. Very, very good. Absolutely looking great. Just got back from the on the live stream after putting my toddler down. Well, the gauge, like we said, I had a guy gauge. I told him, I said, listen, you got to get rid of these distractions while you're studying. It was Dean. My wife and kids are not distractions. I go, I didn't mean that. They're certainly assets. Just makes it a little more challenging if you got toddlers and skipping the book. Never skip the book.
No.
Brian is a supplement. He's a bridge. And so even Brian would tell you that.
Textbooks in the exam.
Yeah, I get this all the time, Brian. Can I just buy Brian? No, Brian is a supplement. The best supplement out there, but a supplement. Can you provide optics? I think we just did that. Am I falling behind here? Okay, well, listen, we got a lot of people still in the queue, but we're over. So we're going to do the drawing, and I'll stick around, and I'll pick up whatever questions are still out there. I'll start with you, Zamarito. Ooh, I like red's one of my favorite colors, so we'll do that. We're going to do our drawing for the coaching call. Remember, you go to deantinneytutoring.setmore.com if you win the class tab. That's long. Is that what we're going to use for our thing, Brian?
No.
Okay, hold on. Let me get it up there before you.
Yeah, I never put the word up there until you tell me.
Oh, yeah. We got it. You don't put it until we tell you go in the chat, because otherwise the Wheel of Fortune won't pick it up. So Wheel of Fortune.
That statement fits in many different ways, especially with the CL.
Okay, so here we go. Let me get our live stream. Okay, Brian, I'm ready when you are.
And this is why I put that up there.
TRI. Trident. Okay. Oh, that's the Mariners thing.
Trident up.
All right. Okay. So now let me put the screen up there. And boom. 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 Okay. So if you want to be in the running for the free coaching call, just put Trident into the chat. And then I'll spin the Wheel of Fortune and we'll see who wins the coaching call. And then I'll return CDC. I'll return and answer the remaining questions that we have here. Any others? Going once. Going twice. Last call for Trident. By the way, I see that somebody has the small t there and that won't work. It's got to be exactly as it is on the screen. So you want to re-enter that with a capital T. It's got to be exactly as you see it, or the Wheel of Fortune won't pick it up. All right, going once. Going twice. All right, boom. All right, Sam. So, Sam, go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. Go to the class tab, coaching call, and you will get a Zoom link that will send you to the coaching call. All right. I'm going to return after we say our goodbyes and answer the remaining questions in the chat. But this is the official end of our podcast. Ran a little over, but we had a lot of good questions. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch, yard by yard. Your exam is hard. And Brian, you say...
You have to learn to keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right. Good luck with your Mariners, and we'll see you next Tuesday, Brian.
Very good. Take care.
All right.
Good luck, everyone.
Let me go back and see what we got left over here. Hey, Dean and Brian. Oh, we did that one. Just seeing what we left out here. We did that one. Oh, man. We're down here. Did that one. Yeah, we did that one. I think that was the last one we did there. There we go. Boom. Ada. So that's a new Ada. Yeah, I think you're great. Knobman's a great provider. I think you should feel really good. I think you're in a great spot. Aaron, I got a 58. We talked about that one already. Yeah, Brian's was spot on. Brian is, I think, as spot on as anybody. Got the toddler down. We talked about that one already. There we go. I think this was it because I remember the red car. I can't tell make out what that car is. Is it a Ferrari? It looks too rounded to be a Ferrari. Maybe an Asian sports car. How's it going? I've taken the SIT 2 terms, scored a 66, 69, scored low 90s. Wow. So when you're getting 90s and you miss the mark, it might be because you've memorized questions instead of understanding those concepts. So you should be able to get this done. I would supplement if you're using STC and you've got 90s on that, you need a different coach. You need a different voice. So maybe check out Kaplan. I have, I think, 5 or 6 different playlists for the SIE. I have plenty of content on the SIE in terms of practice tests. There's enough content on my channel that's free that you can supplement with that will help you find those points. Best way to hammer home the exceptions. Well, I would say, Joe, don't hammer the exceptions because, you want to kind of stay on the broad avenues and highways, right? So I think you're going to not want to be too much into the exceptions. I would want to know what exceptions to what on Series 6, because Series 6, if you did well on your SIE, you could almost pass out of it. I can't imagine exceptions on 6 being material to your success. On a NASA exam, that would be big-time test fodder, but can I do a video on this question? I certainly can. Can you tell me what exam you're taking? I don't know what exam that QID goes to. I'll do that in the morning for you, but I got to know what exam it is. Is it Series 7? Is it 63? I'll check the chat here to make sure I got the exam. Start news, September 6th. Okay, well, there you go. I like that. Yeah, I think that might be a good thing. Let your brain lay low, fallow, and then come back to it, right? Sometimes your brain gets too on top of it, and maybe let it lay fallow. Series 7. Okay, I'll get that up in the morning for you. So sometime in the morning. Don't hold me too much to things to do. By the way, you can send it any test prep vendor. You can send me a question. I'm more than happy to explicate that for you. And if you have questions you need help with, besides joining us on Tuesday, you can send it to explicationrequest@guruexamprep.com. If you've been a viewer of my channel, you know there's lots of practice questions where I make little videos to help people out. Yeah, I get it. You're welcome. Yeah, that hurts. That really hurts. I love it, Nate. Woo! 4 months. Love that. Wow, that is limited time frame for sure. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, Frankie, that hurts. That hurts. One question. My company uses Past Perfect, and Kaplan and stuff is way harder. Where, Aaron, you're one of the few people that think that. Both are good test prep vendors, but Most people would think past perfect is harder than Kaplan. But hey, what you're looking for is confirmation, right? So more accurate. They're both accurate. I think past perfect is obtuse. You're not trying to get questions. Once again, we're not trying to buy test prep vendors or get questions that are like the actual test. We're trying to make sure we understand the content and can pass a test on that body of knowledge called Series 7, right? So that's the goal. The goal isn't to get, things that are more accurate to the actual 7. It's to know what is the intellectual content of the 7, the content outline, and then be able to pass it. All test prep vendors start with the Series 7 content outline on the FINRA site, and then they reverse engineer their materials for that. I have an explication of that content outline that you can find in my channel. Well, Ben, at this point, the biggest thing is to get a good night's rest. The NASAA exams are a giant reading test. I know when I'm tired, my reading skills are greatly diminished. So your big thing should be to actually get a good night's rest and then be confident in your answers tomorrow. There you go. I'm with you. I'm not a big believer in reviewing and coming back. Good test takers know that their flash response, their first response, is their best response. Good test takers don't change answers unless, and good test takers on these exams don't mark for review. They just put it and be done with it and move on to the next performance opportunity. They matriculate down the field into scoring or passing position. Unless you got it wrong, you still shouldn't change it. And you know what the right answer is. Well, then change it. You got to meet most parameters, and very rarely will you meet both. You got it wrong, and you know what the right answer is. Well, then change it. Very rarely will that be the case. I don't believe in marking it for review, because then what happens, Lander, is you end up with a bucket or basket of questions you want to review. It can start blinking and reminding you they're there, and it distracts you from the performance opportunity at hand, right? So I'm not a big fan of that. Not best practice. Just passed last Thursday. I love it. Besides reading the book, actually, you should be doing some practice tests, right? Taking intellectual inventory, seeing where you're at. Should I do a test or Mighty 90 or 60? Eric, both of those would be good. I got the 60, Series 66, and I have for every exam your series in 60 minutes. People ask me to update that. And then I thought, well, I don't want to do the same thing over again. And so then I did the Mighty 90. Yeah. And so now I'm working on the Dirty 30. I'm going to have 30, 60, 90, your choice. They're not the same videos. I've had people say, oh, it's the same video. I go, it's not. That means you didn't watch them, because they're not the same videos. They cover the same high probability content. And so pick your poison or pick which one you like. Maybe watch this Mighty 90 day before and the 60-minute version in the morning. Yeah, Marcel's being facetious. He's won like 5 of the coaching calls. So I think I owe him like a week of tutoring. Right. Okay, so that means we're caught up. Okay, let me just check. Okay, so this was after the drawing. Well, my playlists are in suggested watch order. So, and the videos in the playlist are in suggested watch order. So that means you would start, it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. But you would start with playlist 1 and watch that. That's the 66 podcast series that Brian and I did. Then playlist 2, then playlist 3. I think I got 4 playlists on the 66. You can find that for free on my channel in the 66 practice test playlist. That's free. You can hit pause and then answer. And I think there's 2 versions. There's one where you can just watch me do it. And there's versions where test takers have been polite enough to give me permission to put it on the channel. Nobody goes on the channel without them giving me permission. But sometimes, please be kind. Sometimes people pay me $1,000 to do a shared screen practice test with them. I did 3 of them yesterday, $3,000. And then some of them are kind enough to put them on, let me put them up on the channel. And, I can't believe people put nasty comments on some of these videos about the people who are taking the practice test. And I had one guy, I said, listen, this isn't about you. I don't know what to tell you, my friend. This video wasn't made for your enjoyment. This video was paid for by a test taker who's been kind enough to share it with you. So, leave your derogatory comments about the test taker. You should be focused on your own testing journey, not this person's testing journey. The other one I get a lot on those replays is, did they pass? Well, what do you think? You think I'd put them up on the channel if they didn't pass their exams? Right. So, I'm sorry. The other way you can get it is buy Brian's content. All in is $100, but you can buy that separate PDF for $20, I think. So testgeekexamprep.com. You can buy the PDF of that practice exam. All right. Woo. Well, listen, Aaron, the subject matter experts at Kaplan. I don't know about subject matter experts at the other firms, but for Series 7, it's a guy named Bill James. He's a good friend of mine. For NASAA exams, the subject matter expert is a guy named Chuck Lowenstein. And I can tell you that Bill and Chuck and myself, I interact with them all the time. I'm not allowed to ask you what was question 35, but I can say, what do you think Kaplan or Dean could have done a better job on? And so, one time I sent Chuck some notes and he said, well, I cover all this. I said, well, I know, Chuck. I just thought you might like to know that what you cover is actually there. So 60, I like it. 62. Knopman is a little tougher, mainly. So the variance is in your favor, and I would keep working, right? So we're going to bring that score up, and 62 is a nice starting score. So I wouldn't feel bad about that at all. I work for one of the larger BDs, and the trainers were arguing today about this. Is it true front running is allowed if you can get a better price for the client? Well, I'll enter the fray here. Is front running allowed? The answer is no. I think what you're thinking, Aaron, is a different issue. I don't know how on front running on the customer I'm going to get him a better price. I think what you're thinking about is what's called interpositioning, Aaron. That's a different thing. That's putting a third party into a trade, and that would be allowed if there's superior execution. So I think there's conflicting, melding two things together, right? Conflating them. Is front running allowed? The answer is no. It's trading ahead of a customer. Customer always comes first. There isn't this parentheses, they get a superior execution. No. Interpositioning is a third party into a trade. If, for example, my firm was called Gamma Global, and I call up Goldman and it's Gamma Global. They don't know who the hell Gamma Global is. It's unlikely I'm going to get their best price, perhaps. So I asked T. Rowe Price, hey, will you call Goldman and get a quote for me? T. Rowe Price manages what, a couple $1 trillion? They might get a better price. Now, I just put T. Rowe Price into that trade as a third party, and I'm ending up getting better execution. You can't put a third party in the trade to have a hidden profit. Like I'm trying to avoid the 5% policy. I say, Aaron, I'll mark it up to you 5, your firm. Then you mark it up to the customer 5. And then we can tell the, FINRA we didn't charge more than 5. Or even better, I mark it up 25 and then 5. Let me give you a couple examples. This is a Blueface Submariner Rolex. That's what this is. This comes from a jeweler in San Francisco, unfortunately no longer with us, called Shreve & Company. And my mentor, Louis Chin, he's passed on. I bought this when I was a baby broker and got my first big commission check. And then, I met Louis and he said, Dean, a gentleman should have, 3 fine watches. Oh, man. So now I got all kinds of different Rolexes and BJs and Panerys and, Anyways, my brother said he wanted to buy a Rolex. And I said, Chris, why don't you have Louis buy that Rolex for you? And he said, well, why would I send Louis down to Shreve instead of me going down there? I said, well, because Chris, you and I don't have the patience to go down there and spend all day getting to move off the price of that Rolex. Louis buys all kinds of watches from him, and he'll be down there all day getting to come down on that price. So when he got the Rolex, I gave it to my brother. He said, did I buy this from Shreve or did I buy this from Louis? I said, well, Chris, what do you really care? I mean, as long as it's a real Rolex, it's got a warranty. I wouldn't put it past Louis to have bought it himself and marked it up $1,000 to you. But as long as you get a superior execution, what do you care? You ended up in a better spot. And he said, what if I needed service? I said, same thing. I'd give it to Louis and let Louis take it down there. But, that's the interpositioning. Let's do it in a car business. Let's say that you want a red Corvette. I'm a Chevrolet dealer. Unbeknownst to I've got one in the back lot. But I say, hey, there's only one here in the Las Vegas metropolitan area. and my buddy has it up in North Las Vegas. I'll give him a call and tell you I'm on the way, but I think you're going to have to pay a $10,000 markup. So I call the guy and I say, hey, I got a live one coming. He goes, he's coming in to buy a red Corvette. He goes, I don't have one. I go, I know you don't. My porter's on the way with it. I told him there's one, and I told him he should be expected to pay $10,000 over the retail price, and we can split the hidden profit. By the way, anytime you hear hidden profit, it's going to be bad. So, Aaron, I would think go back to your trainers tomorrow. The answer that Dean says there's no situation you can provide in the testing. By the way, I would call this Series 7 Fantasyland, by the way. Once you pass, you get to leave. I'm stuck here permanently. No wonder I'm demented. I never get to leave. But in the Series 7, there is no situation in which you would tell me front running is anything other than an unethical business practice trading ahead of customers. Period. Full stop. Interpositioning, that's a different deal. That's a third party into the trade. And that would be okay given superior execution. Now, again, it's unlikely that it's going to be okay, but there are situations in which that would be okay. So kind of a long answer, but I think you and your trainers are all confused about the difference between front running and interpositioning. Those are different things. Tessa seemed overwhelming. Any advice? Check out my video. You failed. Is it over? So we've had 4 or 5 people. I'm repeating myself, but check out that. I have 5 recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. How did you and Brian find each other? On an online dating site. Eric, many decades ago, I was a part of the senior management team of a company called Dearborn, which we then sold to a company called Kaplan. And Brian was a guy who came on board to teach classes. I don't know if it was Dearborn or Kaplan at the time in the Northwest. And so that's how we met. Okay, I think that's it. Wow. Okay. Well, I apologize for running over. Sometimes we have lots of questions. I don't like to abandon people who may have made it a point to join us on Tuesday. I'll see you next Tuesday. I'll be looking for the emails. If you're still here, the QID will be up tomorrow. I think you told me it's Series 7, and I'll get that video up for you sometime tomorrow. All right, everybody. I don't have anything for the CFP or insurance. I just do FINRA NASAA. I'll see you next Tuesday. Remember, inch by inch, your exam's a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is whole.